Well, it's quite the fall from grace for Aubameyang. He signed that bumper new deal in September 2020, and we thought then that he was going to be the talisman of this Arsenal side under Mikel Arteta, this rebuilt, this transitional side, trying to recapture past glories. And they had really a striker then who was one of the finest in the Premier League. Ironically, someone who Barcelona were keen on back then, but they managed to keep hold of him, and it looked as though he would be the spearhead for this new look Arsenal. Since then, really, I think particularly since being given the captaincy and the additional responsibility that entails, I think there have been frequent moments where Arteta's been disappointed by Aubameyang's attitude, by the example that he set around the training ground. And there are multiple examples of this. He's missed a COVID test before a Europa League game. He was fined for that. He's had issues where his timekeeping has been poor. He was dropped for the North London derby last season because he missed the team meeting on the day of the game, or he was late for that meeting. And there have been a series of these issues that have just really led to a point where Arteta said, well, look, enough is enough. And he was stripped of the captaincy in December. I think we thought at the time that there might be a way back for him in terms of playing just as a sort of a regular centre forward rather than being part of the leadership group. But clearly that Arteta felt that the transgressions were so egregious that there was no way back for him in terms of being able to play for Arsenal regularly once again. Having said that, when he went away to the African Cup of Nations, we sort of thought, well, it's one thing, maybe the distance will give them a bit of time, a bit of perspective, let things cool down. But as we've got to the end of the window, Arsenal have pursued this quite consistent policy of trying to streamline their squad, trying to save money, which I think is another significant factor here. And they've found a buyer for a player who not many could afford, even though it's on a free transfer and you throw in the wages and everything else. There aren't many clubs around who could have done that deal, and many that Aubameyang would wanted to have signed. Well, they're going to have to sign at least one centre forward. I would think that what will happen in the summer will be a complete revolution of their forward line. It's going to have to be, really. Eddie Nketiah would have left this month had Arsenal not been so short of options. Crystal Palace were keen, Newcastle were looking at him, and he's going to run down his deal and leave on a free transfer. There's the small chance that he might accept a new deal to stay, I suppose, with Nketiah having or sort of being forced to stay at Arsenal for another few months. There's a chance that they can continue that dialogue and maybe find an agreement, but it doesn't look likely. And equally with Lacazette, you'd think, well, this is another player who's into the last 6 months of his contract. They haven't really talked about a new deal. As far as I'm aware, he hasn't even been offered one. So he's almost certain to go unless something dramatic changes there. And with Aubameyang leaving, you're talking about a squad there that its main forward will be Gabriel Martinelli, who's kind of primarily played off the left for Arsenal, and Flo Balogun, who's on loan at Middlesbrough at the moment. So I think they're going to try and do at least one big deal in the summer. I think some of their targets, Alexander Isak is one, Dominic Calvert-Lewin at Everton is another. Those two players specifically are good examples of just signings of a level that are just not available to do in January unless you're going to meet a release clause in Isak's case. And that was about 75 million euros. And that kind of size of that deal is just not something that Arsenal are prepared to do now. I think they'd rather wait until the summer, but it's a big gamble because it leaves them short. Lacazette and Nketiah have not really set the world alight as centre forwards for Arsenal this season. So it's a gamble to think top four's in sight. Can they get through and try and squeeze into those Champions League places and then be able to offer Champions League football to an elite level striker in the summer? Have they got the depth in the squad? Probably, as long as they don't have too many injuries. I mean, obviously there isn't a lot of a margin for error there, particularly as we talked about already in attack. But even in central midfield, we thought that there was a high chance that they were going to sign a central midfielder. They were looking at Arthur Melo at Juventus. They got fairly close, but then that deal never came through. So, you only need one or two injuries in that position, and they look light there as well. So, as I've said already, it is a big gamble for them. The positive is they've only got one game a week, but it's not a squad that looks particularly robust enough to deal with, say a mini COVID outbreak or a sustained problem in one particular department in their squad.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.